This could hardly come at a worse time after 5 years of economic decline and stagnation in our province. Economic fragility, combined with a global recession and a collapse in prices, constitutes a profound challenge for Alberta and for Canada. This will obviously be a very difficult time for everyone in our energy sector and will affect the broader Alberta economy.
That was Alberta Premier Jason Kenney speaking just last hour from Calgary. He was reacting to today's oil price drop, the sharpest we've seen since 1991. The energy market is dealing with a double whammy. First, the spread of coronavirus has reduced global energy need, and now Saudi Arabia and Russia are locked in an oil price war. So what does it mean for Alberta's recently released budget? Rachel Notley is the leader of the Alberta NDP. She joins us now. Hi, Ms. Notley. Thanks for making time for us.
Good to be here.
How serious, in your estimation, is this for Alberta, for the economy in Alberta?
Well, it's a very, very serious time. Listen, this Premier introduced a budget on February 27th, and that budget relied on a number of assumptions and forecasts that were put together in January. As of January, those forecasts and numbers were wildly optimistic. And so by using those numbers, even in January, they were leaving the Alberta economy very, very vulnerable. Now here we are, a little over a month later, and we're in the midst of this crisis, and we've gone from being very, very vulnerable to having a budget which is absolutely and completely disconnected from reality. We're looking at an overall budget shortfall of anywhere between $4 and $8 billion, which on top of the current projected deficit would take us to about a $14 or $15 billion deficit. So we should not be passing this budget because it is make-believe. What we need to do is go back to the table and come up with a plan to support Albertans and to get them back to work and to help them through these difficult times. And having Jason Kenney completely walk away from budget planning and then double down on cuts and throwing people out of work is the absolute wrong decision to support Albertans at this time. And so that's why we asked for them to withdraw this budget and put together a new one.
Okay, let's parse a few of those things out, because first on the idea of the ask of yours to basically redo the budget, the Premier was asked about that today. He said he wants to pass this budget to sort of get stuff out the door, to pass what's there, and then he would come back, assess what the damage is going to be in the midterm, come back and provide an update to that budget. Why isn't that reasonable?
It's not reasonable because it means that we will have absolutely no plan until such time as he decides to bring back a quote-unquote update. The fact of the matter is that you can do interim supply. When the price of oil dropped so dramatically in 2016, our government took the time to put together a budget. We brought it in, it passed in April, and the plan that we had in place was effectively what we were able to deliver while still supporting Albertans, while still investing in creating jobs and doing our best within our capacity to keep people working. And so to pass this make-believe budget and then give himself carte blanche to make whatever decisions creates a massive amount of uncertainty, because there is such a difference between what we know to be the case right now and what is in the budget that they're asking us to pass. And more than that, we need to know if there is a plan to actually support Albertans and introduce an economic stimulus plan. And that's the other really important piece. We can't sit back and continue along the same path. We need an economic stimulus plan to support Alberta.
But with respect, is the budget the only place for that? I just listened to Minister Morneau following Premier Kenney, and he went on and on about how the budget is not necessarily the place for it, that measures could come this week, they could come after the budget. It doesn't have to be all in the budget. So why are you saying that that is the only way that Premier Kenney can address the issues that you've laid out?
Well, basically because what we've got going on right now in this budget is a $4.7 billion corporate handout to corporations that are still making money right now. So we are giving away money at a time when we are in a state of fiscal crisis. We also have a whole series of planned cuts to services, throwing more people out of work, including in healthcare, even as we're trying to deal with the coronavirus. And we have the cessation of a whole bunch of different economic stimulus plans and economic diversification plans, which right now we should not be stopping those plans, we should be doing more. And so the scope and the breadth of the impact of these decisions on the budget are much bigger than what Minister Morneau were talking about, and they should not be happening as interim measures on the back of a napkin when we are so off target in the overall document, which is the budget. Basically, Alberta needs a blueprint. We don't have one right now because Jason Kenney's budget is completely gone. It just doesn't make any sense at all.
From what Premier Kenney said today, just listening to his comments, he sounded open, for example, to increasing the amount of money spent through the budget or through the budget update, I should say, on capital infrastructure. Is that the kind of thing that you're looking for? He didn't sound like he was going to be making further cuts, even though revenues will obviously be impacted.
Well, I mean, we don't know what he's talking about doing, and this is where, because this is such a major crisis for Albertans, this is where his plan should be coming in front of the legislature. And so, yes, there should absolutely be an economic stimulus plan. The decision to continue with the corporate tax giveaway should be re-examined. There's no need for us to go from the lowest tax jurisdiction in the country to an even lower tax jurisdiction in the country while cutting programs at our post-secondaries, while pulling back in our healthcare, while cutting economic diversification investment. And so these are the kinds of decisions that we should all be able to engage in. And by passing his fake budget, he actually removes Albertans from the very process of figuring out how to deal with what is probably one of the biggest economic crises we have faced in decades.
What about the federal government, Ms. Notley? Premier Kenney says he's coming here at the end of the week to meet with other premiers and the Prime Minister, and he'll have a specific list of asks. What is your specific list of asks of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau?
Well, overall, as I said earlier today, I do think the federal government has to step up, because even though we know all of Canada is going to go through an economic slowdown because of the coronavirus, we know that impacts Alberta more because of its impact on the price of oil. And then in addition to we now also have to deal with what's going on between Saudi Arabia and Russia. And so we're in very deep trouble in Alberta. And so, I join with the Premier in the ask for the cap to be taken off the Fiscal Stabilization Fund. I think that we should be accelerating infrastructure spend in Alberta. I think we should be re-examining how EI is made available to folks, not only for folks across the country who are having to self-quarantine because of coronavirus, but also for folks in Alberta who are going to find themselves with some real instability in terms of their employment prospects. And so those are some things, probably not all. The other thing, of course, is we'd like to see the federal government do a pretty major bump into orphan well reclamation because a lot of that work is transferable to some of the folks who are struggling to find work in the oil and gas sector right now. So those are a few of the ideas that we have in mind. There's probably more, but we do know that Ottawa's going to need to help Alberta out through the next little while, because this is a big hit for our province and for our citizens.
Okay, I'll leave it there. Thanks a lot for making time for us today, Ms. Notley. Appreciate it. Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.